Hello, welcome back to another evening of shared stories and adventures. Tonight, we're diving into the world of Stranger Things, specifically breaking down the recently released trailer for Season 5, Volume 2. I'll be covering all the major moments from the trailer, what they might mean for the story, and honestly, there's loads to unpack here. So we'll start with some context about where we are in the season and how this whole three-part release structure works. Then we'll move through the trailer itself scene by scene, talking about what Volume 1 left us with, the shocking revelations about the Upside Down, and what all these character moments are setting up. We'll also touch on some of the fan theories floating around and what to expect from the finale coming on New Year's Eve. Plenty to get talking about, but if you like what I do here and want a way to support the channel, consider subscribing down below. But for now, grab your blanket and flashlight, settle into the couch, and let's begin. So before we dive into what the trailer shows us, let's talk a bit about where we are in the story. Stranger Things. Season 5 is the final season of the show, which honestly feels a bit surreal to say out loud. This is it. The end of the road for the kids from Hawkins, and Netflix has decided to do something pretty unusual with how they're releasing it. Instead of dropping all the episodes at once like they usually do, or even splitting it into 2 volumes like they did with Season 4, they've gone for a 3-part holiday release structure. It's quite ambitious, actually. Volume 1 dropped on November 26th, 2025, which was the day before Thanksgiving in the US. That volume consisted of 4 episodes, specifically episodes 1 through 4 of the 8-episode season. So that's half the season right there, and honestly, those 4 episodes were absolutely packed with story. We got to see Hawkins under military quarantine, Vecna enacting his plans, and loads of character development that set up everything for the back half of the season. The Volume 1 finale, Episode 4 titled Sorcerer, ended on a massive cliffhanger that left everyone desperate for more. Now, Volume 2 is what we're here to talk about tonight. It releases on December 25th, 2025, which is Christmas Day at 5 p.m. Pacific Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern Time for those keeping track. Volume 2 contains 3 episodes, so that's episodes 5, 6, and 7. These are the penultimate episodes that will bridge the gap between the setup from Volume 1 and the final confrontation. According to Netflix's promotional materials and the Duffer Brothers themselves, these 3 episodes are going to be absolutely crucial for understanding how everything comes together. They've promised answers to long-standing mysteries about the Upside Down, major character moments, and the kind of action sequences that Stranger Things has become known for. But that's not even the end of it. After Volume 2 wraps up on Christmas Day, there's still one more event. The series finale, Episode 8, is being released on New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2025, also at 5 p.m. Pacific Time. This finale is reportedly around 2 hours long, which is basically a feature film. It's the longest episode in Stranger Things history, and it's going to serve as the conclusion to the entire series. What makes this even more special is that Netflix is doing something they rarely do. They're releasing it simultaneously on the streaming platform and in select theatres around the world. There are going to be fan screening events where people can watch the finale on the big screen, which is honestly quite cool for a show that started as a streaming series. It gives the whole thing a proper cinematic send-off. This 3-part release structure is definitely a departure from what we've seen before. Season 4 had a 2-part release, with Volume 1 in late May 2024 and Volume 2 about a month later in early July 2024, but spreading Season 5 across 3 separate holiday releases, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's Eve, is a completely new approach. There's a strategic element to it, obviously. Netflix wants to keep people subscribed throughout the holiday season, and releasing major Stranger Things content on 3 of the biggest holidays of the year basically guarantees that everyone will be talking about the show for over a month straight. It's clever marketing, but it's also a bit torturous for fans who just want to binge the whole thing in one go. From a storytelling perspective though, the structure does make sense. The Duffer Brothers, who created the show and serve as executive producers alongside Sean Levy and Dan Cohen, have said that they wanted each volume to feel like its own event. Volume 1 establishes the stakes and gets everyone into position. Volume 2 escalates everything and moves the pieces toward the endgame. And then the finale delivers the resolution. It's a 3-act structure, stretched across 3 separate releases, which is actually quite traditional when you think about it. It just means we have to wait between acts, which is the hard part. The show itself is produced by Upside Down Pictures and 21 Laps Entertainment, and the entire main cast has returned for this final season. We're talking about Millie Bobby Brown as Eleven, Finn Wolfhard as Mike, Gaten Matarazzo as Dustin, Caleb McLaughlin as Lucas, Noah Schnapp as Will, Winona Ryder as Joyce, David Harbour as Hopper, Sadie Sink as Max, Joe Keery as Steve, Maya Hawke as Robin, Charlie Heaton as Jonathan, Natalia Dyer as Nancy, and Jamie Campbell-Bower as Vecna/Henry Creel. There are also some new cast members for Season 5, including Nell Fisher as Holly Wheeler, Linda Hamilton from the Terminator films as Dr. K, and a few others. It's a massive ensemble, and apparently getting everyone's schedules to align for filming was quite the logistical challenge. But talking a bit about where we actually are in the story, the official synopsis for Season 5 sets the stage pretty clearly. It's the fall of 1987, so roughly a year after the events of Season 4. Hawkins has been scarred by the opening of the rifts, which are those massive gates to the Upside Down that Vecna created at the end of Season 4. The entire town is under military quarantine, which means soldiers everywhere, checkpoints, and a general atmosphere of occupied territory. Our heroes are united by a single goal, which is to find and kill Vecna. The problem is that he's vanished. Nobody knows where he is or what he's planning, which makes him even more dangerous. Meanwhile, the government has intensified its hunt for Eleven, forcing her back into hiding because they still see her as a threat or a weapon to be controlled. As the anniversary of Will's original disappearance from Season 1 approaches, there's this heavy, familiar dread building. The final battle is looming, and with it comes a darkness more powerful and more deadly than anything they've faced before. To understand what Volume 2's trailer is showing us, we need to recap where Volume 1 ended. Let's cover what happened in that Volume 1 finale, because honestly, it was a proper game changer. Episode 4, titled Sorcerer, is one of those episodes that completely shifts the playing field, and if you haven't watched it yet, well, there are going to be spoilers ahead. But considering we're here to break down the Volume 2 trailer, I'm assuming you've already seen Volume 1. If not, maybe come back to this after you've caught up. The episode builds to this absolutely massive confrontation at the military compound where Vecna's chosen vessels are being held. These vessels are 12 children that Vecna has specifically targeted for his plan, whatever that plan fully entails. Throughout Volume 1, we learn that Vecna needs these particular kids for some kind of ritual or transformation that will allow him to reshape reality itself. It's dark stuff, and the military has been holding them in a secure facility, both to study them and supposedly to keep them safe from Vecna. Our heroes, the main group we've been following since Season 1, they hatch this elaborate plan to smuggle the children out of the compound before Vecna can get to them. It's a heist, basically, with multiple moving parts and loads of things that could go wrong. And things do go wrong. Spectacularly. Vecna shows up at the compound, and what follows is one of the most brutal sequences in Stranger Things history. He absolutely massacres the soldiers stationed there. We're talking about a full-on slaughter. The military, with all their guns and training and equipment, they're completely powerless against him. Vecna moves through the compound like a force of nature, and the body count rises fast. It's genuinely horrifying to watch, and it drives home just how powerful he's become since the end of Season 4. He's not just strong, he's basically unstoppable at this point. While all this chaos is unfolding Our group is trying desperately to get the children to safety. They're running through corridors, dodging soldiers, avoiding Vecna, and the whole thing is falling apart around them. Mike, Dustin, Lucas, Will, they're all there trying to help. Joyce and Hopper are involved. Nancy and Jonathan are providing cover. It's the whole ensemble working together, but they're outmatched. Vecna eventually corners them in this moment that feels absolutely hopeless. The children are about to be taken, everyone's about to die, and there's this Demogorgon attack happening simultaneously that makes everything worse. And that's when Will does something nobody expected. Throughout Volume 1, there have been these hints that something's different with Will. He's been having these moments where he seems connected to the Upside Down in ways that go beyond what we saw in earlier seasons. He can sense things. He knows when Vecna is near. There's this building suggestion that his time in the Upside Down, back in Season 1, and his possession by the Mind Flayer in Season 2, they've left permanent marks on him. Changed him somehow. But nobody really understands what that means until this moment in the compound. The Demogorgons are closing in. These massive creatures with their petal-shaped heads and rows of teeth, they're about to tear everyone apart. And Will just snaps. His eyes go white, like completely white. No pupils, just this blank stare. And suddenly, the Demogorgons stop. They freeze mid-attack, and then they start attacking each other. Will is controlling them. He's using some kind of power that's similar to Eleven's abilities, but different. More connected to the Upside Down's hive mind. He brutally dispatches the Demogorgons, using his mind to turn them against each other, and it saves everyone's lives. But it's not a triumphant moment, it's terrifying. Will collapses afterwards, blood dripping from his nose just like Eleven gets when she overuses her powers, and everyone's just staring at him in shock. Noah Schnapp's performance in this scene is really quite something. The way he goes from terrified to this blank, powerful state, and then back to this scared kid who doesn't understand what just happened to him, it's properly affecting. The Duffer Brothers have said in interviews that they always knew Will would be key to ending Vecna. He was the first one taken in Season 1, so it felt right for the story to come full circle with him being instrumental in the finale. Gaten Matarazzo, who plays Dustin, mentioned in an interview that Will's powers will change the game for the group. He said it puts them on more of an even playing field with Vecna. Finn Wolfhard, who plays Mike, put it simply when he said, "We have 2 11s now." But here's the thing, while Will is having this awakening and saving his friends from the Demogorgons, Vecna uses the distraction to achieve his actual goal. He takes the children, all 12 of them. Despite everything our heroes tried to do, despite the plan and the sacrifice, and Will's new powers, Vecna gets what he came for. The episode shows him escaping with the vessels, while everyone's still reeling from what just happened with Will. It's a devastating loss. They failed. They tried to stop him and they couldn't. Meanwhile, in a completely different location, Eleven and Hopper have their own storyline happening simultaneously. They've been tracking down information about Dr. K, this mysterious scientist played by Linda Hamilton, who's been conducting experiments on psychic children for the government. According to the information they've gathered, Dr. K has been holding someone important, someone Eleven has been searching for. They break into Dr. K's lab, fighting through security and dealing with all sorts of obstacles, and when they finally get to the containment area, they find Carly. Carly, also known as 8, was introduced way back in Season 2, Episode 7, which was titled The Lost Sister. That episode was quite divisive among fans. Some people loved it, others thought it was a weird detour from the main story. Carly has illusion powers. She can make people see things that aren't there, create entire false realities in someone's mind. She was part of the same program that Eleven was in, one of Dr. Brenner's test subjects, but she escaped years ago and has been living as a fugitive. Eleven met her briefly in Season 2, and there was this whole subplot about them potentially working together, but Eleven chose to return to Hawkins, and Carly stayed in Chicago, with her makeshift family of outcasts. Now apparently, Carly has been recaptured by the government and held in Dr. K's facility. The reunion between Eleven and Carly is emotional. They're sisters in a sense, both victims of the same program, both with these incredible powers. Eleven immediately wants Carly to come with them, to help fight Vecna, and Carly agrees. So now we have two powerful psychics on the side of our heroes, which should be a good thing. But the episode doesn't give us much time to celebrate this reunion, because everything's happening so fast. The episode ends with multiple cliffhangers. Will is discovering he has these powers, but has no idea how to control them or what they mean. Vecna has successfully obtained all 12 vessels and has disappeared to enact whatever his plan is. The military compound is destroyed, bodies everywhere, and the government is going to come down even harder on Hawkins and on our heroes. Eleven and Carly are together but separated from the main group. Max is still in a coma in Hawkins Memorial Hospital, stuck between life and death since the end of Season 4. And Holly Wheeler, Mike and Nancy's younger sister, is still trapped in Vecna's mindscape after being abducted earlier in Volume 1. She's been having these visions of Mr. Whatsit, which is Vecna's alter ego, when he appears to her as this friendly imaginary friend. And she's somewhere between reality and the upside down. So yeah, loads to process before we even get to the new trailer. Volume 1 left us with multiple groups separated, a major defeat for our heroes, and new powers emerging in unexpected places. It's a classic Empire Strikes Back setup, where the bad guy wins the middle act and everything looks hopeless going into the finale. Now let's talk about what the Volume 2 trailer actually shows us. The trailer opens exactly where Volume 1 left off, which makes sense. There's no time jump or scene change. We're immediately back in the aftermath of that devastating confrontation at the military compound. The first thing we hear is Will's voice, and he sounds absolutely broken. He says, "We failed. We never stood a chance." It's delivered as this quiet, defeated statement, and you can hear the weight of everything that just happened in those few words. Noah Schnapp's delivery is really quite affecting here. It's not dramatic or over the top, it's just tired, hopeless. The visual that accompanies this line is Will standing there, still processing what he just did. Blood is visible on his face from the nosebleed, and he's got this look of someone who's just discovered something about themselves that they can't take back. His eyes are normal again, not the blank white they were when he was controlling the Demogorgons, but there's this haunted quality to his expression. He's scared of his own power, which is completely understandable when you think about it. For 5 seasons, Will has been the victim, the one who gets taken, possessed, used, and now he's discovering that he has this dark ability connected to the very thing that's tormented him since he was 12 years old. Joyce is there with him, and her response is immediate. She pulls him into a tight embrace and says, "This is not over, not by a long shot." Winona Ryder's Joyce has always been this fierce protector, especially when it comes to Will, and that energy is fully present in this moment. She's refusing to let him spiral into despair, refusing to accept defeat. It's classic Joyce Byers energy, honestly. The woman has been through absolute hell across 5 seasons, losing her son to the upside down, watching him get possessed, dealing with Hopper's supposed death, and she just keeps fighting. She's not about to give up now, and she's certainly not going to let Will give up either. The hug between them is quite long in the trailer, which is interesting. The Duffer Brothers could have cut it short and moved on to the next scene, but they let it breathe. It shows that Volume 2 isn't going to be all action and explosions. There will be emotional moments, character beats, time for people to process what's happening to them. That's always been one of Stranger Things' strengths, the way it balances supernatural horror with genuine human emotion. The monsters and the upside down are terrifying, but the show never forgets that these are real people dealing with extraordinary circumstances. After this opening moment with Will and Joyce, the trailer cuts to Mike. He's outside looking up at the sky, and there's this red light crackling across his face. It's the upside down energy, the same kind of atmospheric distortion we've seen when portals are opening, or when Vecna is exerting his influence. Mike's expression is one of dread mixed with determination. He knows what's coming. They all know what's coming. Vecna is out there somewhere with those 12 children, and whatever he's planning is about to happen. Then we get another shot of Will, and this time his eyes have gone white again. He's sitting down with Robin and Lucas visible nearby, and it looks like they're setting up some kind of tent or shelter. But Will isn't helping. He's gone into that trance state, tapping back into the hive mind. Mike is watching him with this worried expression, which makes sense. Mike and Will have been best friends since they were kids. They've been through everything together, and now Mike is watching his best friend become something connected to their greatest enemy. That's got to be terrifying on a personal level, even if Will's powers might be useful for defeating Vecna. What's really interesting about these opening moments is how they establish Will's internal conflict, which is clearly going to be a major thread through Volume 2. He has this power now. He can tap into Vecna's connection to the Upside Down, potentially use it against him. But every time he does it, he's using something dark, something connected to the Mind Flayer and Vecna, and all the trauma he's experienced. It's not like Eleven's powers, which feel more neutral or at least separate from the Upside Down itself. Will's abilities are fundamentally tied to the thing they're fighting against, which raises all sorts of questions about whether using them makes him more like Vecna. The Duffer Brothers have been talking about Will's importance to the final season since before it even started filming. In multiple interviews, they've emphasized that his story comes full circle here. Season 1 began with his disappearance. The entire show exists because Will Byers vanished into the Upside Down on November 6, 1983. Everything that's happened since then, all the horror and death and struggle, it all traces back to that moment, so it makes narrative sense that Will would be key to ending it. He's the one who spent the most time in the Upside Down in its early form. He's the one the Mind Flayer possessed. He's the one who's always been able to sense when the Upside Down is near. He's been connected to this from the very beginning, and now that connection is manifesting as actual power. Finn Wolfhard mentioned in a Good Morning America interview that they essentially have 2 11s now, and I think that's both accurate and misleading. Yes, Will has psychic powers similar to Eleven's, but Eleven's powers are telekinetic and telepathic. She can move things with her mind, access people's memories, find people across distances. Will's powers seem to be specifically about controlling creatures from the Upside Down. It's a narrower ability, but potentially just as powerful in this specific situation where they're fighting Vecna and his army of monsters. Gaten Matarazzo said Will's powers changed the game and put them on more of an even playing field with Vecna, which is true. Before they had Eleven, who's incredibly powerful, but has struggled against Vecna in direct confrontation. He's beaten her multiple times. But now they have someone who can potentially turn Vecna's own forces against him, someone who speaks the same language as the Upside Down, in a sense. That's a huge advantage, assuming Will can learn to control it without losing himself in the process. But the trailer doesn't dwell on the sadness and fear for too long. One of the biggest moments in the trailer comes from Dustin, and it's a proper bombshell. We see him and Steve walking through what appears to be Hawkins' lab, except it's not the version in the real world. This is Hawkins' lab in the Upside Down. The whole place is covered in those organic vines that grow everywhere in that dimension, these thick, rope-like tendrils that pulse with a faint red glow. The walls are decaying and covered in this biological matter that looks almost alive. It's properly unsettling, the way the architecture of the lab has been consumed by the Upside Down's ecosystem. You can tell it's been abandoned for a while, at least by humans. Dustin and Steve are moving cautiously through the corridors, and you can see the tension in their body language. They're scared but pressing forward anyway, which is very much their dynamic. Dustin Henderson has always been the brains of the operation, the one who figures out the science behind the supernatural stuff. And he's the one who delivers the line that's been all over social media since the trailer dropped. He says, "This whole time, Everything we've ever assumed about the Upside Down has been dead wrong. Dead wrong. That's a massive statement. For 5 seasons, our heroes and the audience have been building an understanding of what the Upside Down is. It's a parallel dimension, a dark reflection of Hawkins stuck on the day Will disappeared, November 6, 1983. It's connected to the Mind Flayer, this massive entity that seems to control everything there. Vecna, who was actually Henry Creel, the first child with powers from Dr. Brenner's program, he's been living there since 11 banished him in 1979. He's shaped it somehow, or it's shaped him. There's been this assumption that the Upside Down is just another dimension that exists parallel to ours, and the Mind Flayer is the intelligence behind it all. But Dustin is saying all of that is wrong. Everything. The fundamental assumptions about what this place is, where it came from, why it exists, all of it needs to be reconsidered. That's the kind of revelation that recontextualizes the entire series. It's like finding out that everything you thought you understood about the rules of this universe was based on incomplete or false information. The visual that accompanies Dustin's line is absolutely stunning and terrifying in equal measure. He and Steve are looking up at the ceiling, or what used to be the ceiling, and there's this enormous swirling mass of energy suspended above them. It's hard to describe exactly what it looks like. The best comparison I can make is to imagine a miniature galaxy, but instead of stars and cosmic dust, it's made of swirling red and black energy. It rotates slowly, this massive orb of power that seems to pulse with its own heartbeat. Tendrils of energy occasionally shoot out from it, like solar flares, and the whole thing emits this ominous red glow that illuminates Dustin and Steve from above. Steve's response is perfect. He just stares at this thing and says, "Mother of God." Which I mean, yeah, that about covers it. Joe Keery's delivery is this mixture of awe and absolute terror, and it's the exact reaction any normal person would have when confronted with something that massive and incomprehensible. Steve Harrington started this series as the popular jock who was mainly concerned with his hair and his relationship with Nancy. 5 seasons later, he's staring at what might be the power source of an alternate dimension, and he's somehow still the most relatable character because his reaction is just visceral horror. Some people online have been comparing this orb to the IT from A Wrinkle in Time, that Madeleine L'Engle novel. In that book, the IT is this malevolent brain that controls the planet Camazotz, which is actually quite relevant because one of the Volume 2 episodes is titled Escape from Camazotz. The IT in that story represents conformity and control, this dark intelligence that consumes individuality. If the Duffer Brothers are drawing from that source material, and it seems like they are, then this orb might represent something similar. A central intelligence or power source that's been controlling the Upside Down this whole time. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Later in the trailer, we see Nancy and Jonathan in a different location within the Upside Down, and they're witnessing something similar. They're looking up at the sky, and there's this massive surge of red energy moving through the atmosphere above them. It's like lightning, but thicker, more substantial. These huge tendrils of power stretching across the sky in patterns that almost look deliberate, like veins or neural pathways. Nancy and Jonathan both look absolutely gobsmacked by what they're seeing, which makes sense. They've been to the Upside Down before. Nancy was there in Season 1. Both of them were there in Season 4. They've seen what this dimension looks like, but they've never seen anything like this. What's really fascinating is that we also get glimpses of these new types of gates or portals. In previous seasons, gates to the Upside Down have appeared as these vertical rifts or openings, usually with that membrane-like substance you have to push through. The big gate under Hawkins' lab in Season 1, the Gate 11 opened in the lab, the gates Vecna created at the end of Season 4, they all had a similar appearance, but in this trailer, we see something different. Steve and Dustin encounter what looks like a slimy rip in the ceiling above them, and it's not a vertical opening. It's this writhing, shifting thing suspended in the air. The edges of it pulse and move like it's alive. There's biological matter dripping from it. Could this orb be the source of the Upside Down's power? Is it what's keeping that dimension stable or connected to our world? Some fans have theorized that the Upside Down might actually be a creation rather than a naturally occurring dimension. There's been speculation for years about whether Eleven accidentally created it when she made contact with the Mind Flayer back in 1979 during her confrontation with Henry Creel. The fact that the Upside Down is frozen on November 6th, 1983, the day Will disappeared, has always been suspicious. Why that specific date? What makes it significant? If Dustin's right and everything they've assumed is wrong, maybe the Upside Down isn't a parallel dimension at all. Maybe it's something Eleven created, or something that was created by the interaction between her powers and Henry Creel's. Maybe this orb is proof of that. Maybe it's a manifestation of psychic energy that's been sustaining an artificial dimension this whole time. That would certainly explain why destroying it, or understanding it, might be the key to defeating Vecna and closing the rifts permanently. The Duffer Brothers have promised that Season 5 will finally explain what the Upside Down actually is. They've said in multiple interviews that all the mysteries will be answered, and I think this revelation from Dustin is the beginning of that explanation. We're going to learn the truth about the Upside Down's origins, its nature, and how it's connected to Eleven, to Vecna, to all of it. And apparently, based on Dustin's reaction, the truth is going to challenge everything we thought we knew. Whatever it is, it's clearly massive, both literally and for the story. Since we're on the topic of what's happening in the Upside Down, let's talk about who else is there and what kind of danger they're facing. The trailer shows loads of our favourite characters deep in that dimension, and none of them look particularly comfortable about it. Which, makes sense. The Upside Down has never been a pleasant place to visit, but based on what we're seeing in this trailer, it seems like it's gotten significantly more dangerous since the last time anyone was there. Steve and Dustin aren't alone in their exploration of the corrupted Hawkins lab. At various points in the trailer, we see Nancy and Jonathan navigating through different areas of the Upside Down as well. Nancy Wheeler has always been one of the more fearless characters in the series. She was the first person to voluntarily go into the Upside Down back in Season 1 when she dove through the portal in the tree to find Barb. She's faced Demogorgons, survived the Mind Flayer's attacks, and generally proven herself to be absolutely capable in crisis situations. But even Nancy looks shaken by what she's encountering in Volume 2. There's this shot of her and Jonathan standing together, and they're both staring upward with these expressions of complete disbelief. The red energy we talked about earlier is surging through the sky above them, and you can see it reflected in their faces. They're holding weapons. Looks like Nancy has her shotgun, and Jonathan has something as well. But against what they're witnessing, those weapons seem almost laughably inadequate. It's one thing to shoot a Demogorgon. It's another thing entirely to confront whatever fundamental force is powering an entire dimension. The group seem to be split up for at least part of Volume 2, which is a classic Stranger Things move. The show has always been good at managing multiple storylines happening simultaneously, and it looks like Volume 2 will continue that tradition. Steve and Dustin are one team, Nancy and Jonathan are another, and there are hints of other groupings as well. This makes sense from a storytelling perspective. You can cover more ground, explore different aspects of the Upside Down, and create parallel storylines that eventually converge for the finale. One of the character moments that stands out in the trailer involves Robin. Maya Hawke's Robin Buckley was introduced in Season 3 and quickly became a fan favourite. She's smart, funny, anxious, and incredibly loyal to her friends. In the trailer, we see her in what looks like a tense situation, and she delivers this line that's both humorous and kind of devastating. She says, "I kind of thought that was supposed to be the easy part." There's this exasperation in her voice, like she can't believe how wrong things have gone. Lucas Sinclair responds to her with perfect deadpan timing. He just says, "It was." Caleb McLaughlin's delivery is so dry and defeated that it's almost funny, except it's also highlighting just how badly their plans have fallen apart. They thought the hard part was over. They thought they'd accomplished something, and then everything went wrong, and now they're stuck in the upside down, dealing with revelations about swirling energy orbs and new types of gates and God knows what else. This exchange really captures the tone of where Volume 2 is starting from. Our heroes are not in a good place. They're physically exhausted, emotionally drained, and they've just suffered a major defeat. The easy part, whatever that was, is done. Now comes the actually difficult stuff, and they're already running on empty. It's that Empire Strikes Back middle chapter. Energy, where the heroes are at their lowest point before the final push. Speaking of difficult stuff, one of the more visually striking moments in the trailer involves a Demogorgon getting electrocuted. And I mean properly electrocuted. We see this creature, one of those massive predators from the upside down, with the flower petal head and rows of teeth, and it's being hit with what looks like a massive electrical current. The thing is convulsing, its body jerking and spasming as electricity courses through it. Sparks are flying everywhere, and the Demogorgon is making these awful shrieking sounds. Now, Demogorgons have always been tough to kill. In Season 1, it took multiple characters working together to defeat even one of them. They're strong, fast, and incredibly dangerous. But apparently, someone has figured out that electricity is effective against them. Whether this is Will using his powers to control the creatures and force them into electrical traps, or whether it's the group using some kind of weapon or device, the trailer doesn't make entirely clear. But the visual of this creature being electrocuted is both satisfying and kind of brutal. These things have killed beloved characters throughout the series. Seeing one suffering is a bit cathartic, honestly. There are multiple action sequences teased in the trailer, and they all look incredibly intense. We see people running through corridors, diving for cover, fighting against creatures we can't quite make out in the quick cuts. The cinematography in these moments is top-notch. The Duffer Brothers and their directors have always been good at creating tension and atmosphere, and Volume 2 looks like it's taking that to another level. The lighting is mostly that eerie red glow from the upside down, which creates these long shadows and makes everything look even more nightmarish than usual. What's interesting is how the various locations in the upside down are depicted. We're used to seeing the upside-down version of Hawkins, with its abandoned houses and empty streets, everything covered in that grey particulate matter floating through the air. But in this trailer, we're seeing interior spaces, labs, facilities, structures that have been consumed by the dimension's organic growth. The vines are everywhere, covering walls and ceilings, pulsing with that faint internal light. It looks less like an alternate dimension and more like the inside of some massive living organism. The upside down has always had this biological quality to it, but seeing it overtake man-made structures really emphasizes how invasive and consuming it is. The team dynamics visible in the trailer are also quite important. Steve and Dustin have always had this almost brotherly relationship despite the age difference. Steve started as Nancy's boyfriend, but his friendship with Dustin became one of the most genuine connections in the series. Watching them navigate the upside down together, you can see the trust between them, Steve's protective instincts toward the younger kids, and Dustin's reliance on Steve's physical courage to complement his own intellectual approach. It's a partnership that works. Nancy and Jonathan's relationship has been more complicated, especially after Season 4 introduced some distance between them. But seeing them together in the upside down, working as a team, suggests that whatever personal issues they might have are taking a backseat to the immediate crisis. When you're in a hell dimension, trying to understand cosmic horror, relationship drama becomes less important. You focus on survival and the mission. Robin's presence in these upside-down sequences is interesting because she's one of the characters who hasn't spent as much time in that dimension. She was in the Russian facility under Starcourt Mall in Season 3, but that wasn't the upside down proper. She's had less exposure to this stuff than most of the main group, which makes her reactions feel more like what a normal person would experience. She's scared, she's overwhelmed, but she's pushing through it anyway, because that's what you do when your friends need you. There are glimpses of other characters in dangerous situations as well. Quick cuts of people we can't quite identify in the trailer's fast-paced editing. Shapes moving in the shadows, creatures that might be demogorgons or might be something else entirely. The Volume 2 trailer is deliberately keeping some things mysterious, giving us enough to understand the stakes without spoiling the major beats of these 3 episodes. It's clear the Upside Down is more dangerous than it's ever been. Now, one of the more mysterious parts of the trailer involves Holly Wheeler and Max, who seem to be on their own adventure entirely. These 2 characters are in what appears to be a completely different space from everyone else. It's not the physical upside down that Steve, Dustin, Nancy and Jonathan are navigating. This looks like something else, something more abstract and psychological. Based on what we saw in Volume 1 and what the trailer is showing us, this is most likely the mindscape, that mental dimension where Vecna traps his victims. Holly Wheeler is Mike and Nancy's younger sister, and she's been this background character for most of the series. She was just a toddler in Season 1, barely speaking, mostly just existing as part of the Wheeler family household. But in Season 5, she's become central to the plot. Nell Fisher plays her now that she's older, probably around 7 or 8 years old, and Volume 1 established that Vecna specifically targeted her. He appeared to her as Mr. Whatsit, this friendly imaginary friend figure, who seemed harmless at first. The name Mr. Whatsit is actually a reference to a wrinkle in time, where Mrs. Whatsit is one of the celestial beings who helps the children. But in Stranger Things, Mr. Whatsit is obviously Vecna in disguise, manipulating a child. Holly was abducted into the mindscape during Volume 1, and she's been trapped there ever since. The mindscape is different from the physical upside down. It's where Vecna brings his victims mentally before he kills them. It's that red-tinted hellscape we saw in Season 4 when he was hunting Max, where everything is twisted and wrong and the environment shifts based on memories and fears. It's psychological horror made manifest, basically. And Holly, this young kid who doesn't fully understand what's happening to her, has been alone there with Vecna, torturing her in ways we haven't fully seen yet. But apparently, she's not alone anymore. Max is there with her. Max Mayfield, played by Sadie Sink, has been in a coma since the end of Season 4. Vecna nearly killed her in that season's climax. He had her in his mindscape, was breaking her bones, and was in the process of taking her life when Eleven intervened from a distance and fought him off. Max technically died for a full minute before Eleven used her powers to restart her heart. But even though her body survived, Max has been comatose ever since. Her mind is somewhere else. The general assumption has been that part of her consciousness is still trapped in Vecna's mindscape, which is why she hasn't woken up despite her body healing. The trailer shows Holly and Max together in this red-tinted nightmare world, and they appear to be actively trying to escape. There are these doorways visible in the footage, multiple doors suspended in space with light coming through them. Holly is moving toward them, and Max seems to be guiding her, or at least accompanying her. The visual language suggests they're navigating through different layers or sections of this mental prison, trying to find a way out. What's really interesting is the dynamic between these 2 characters. Holly is very young, probably terrified, in way over her head. Max is older, more experienced with Vecna's tactics, and has been trapped in this space much longer. She knows how it works. She's survived it before, so there's this implied mentorship or protection happening where Max is helping Holly navigate the mindscape's dangers. It's actually quite touching when you think about it. Max has been suffering alone in this coma state for months, stuck between life and death, and now she has a purpose. She can help this kid who's in the same situation she was in. One of the Volume 2 episodes is titled Escape from Camazotz, which is absolutely a reference to A Wrinkle in Time. In that novel, Camazotz is a planet controlled by a malevolent force called the IT. Everyone on Camazotz is under mind control, living in perfect conformity, and the main characters have to rescue someone trapped there. The title tells us that episode 6 is going to be about Holly and Max's attempt to escape the mindscape. Camazotz is the perfect metaphor for what Vecna's mindscape represents. It's a place of control where Vecna is the IT, the dark intelligence that dominates everything. Fun fact, the Mr. What's-It name connects to the same source material. In A Wrinkle in Time, you have Mrs. What's-It, Mrs. Who, and Mrs. Which, these three beings who help the children. The Duffer Brothers have been playing with that reference throughout Volume 1, having Vecna disguise himself using a name from a story about defeating evil through love and connection. It's quite clever, honestly, turning a symbol of help and guidance into something sinister. The visual style of the mindscape scenes in the trailer is distinctly different from the upside down sequences. Where the upside down is organic and biological, covered in vines and decay, the mindscape looks more surreal and fragmented. There are broken structures floating in space, staircases that lead nowhere, doors suspended in red void. It's like being inside someone's nightmare, which makes sense because that's essentially what it is. Vecna constructs these spaces from his victims' fears and memories, creating personalized hells designed to break them down before he consumes them. Max navigating this space is significant because she's done it before. In Season 4, she escaped Vecna's mindscape by focusing on her happiest memory while her friends played Running Up That Hill by Kate Bush. Music became her anchor to reality, pulling her back from the brink of death. She knows the mindscape can be escaped. She knows there are ways to fight back against Vecna's control, and now she's applying that knowledge to help Holly. The doorways they're approaching in the trailer might represent different escape routes, or different layers of the mindscape they need to traverse. Each door could lead to a different memory, a different test, or potentially back to consciousness. The symbolism of doors as thresholds between states of being is pretty obvious, but Stranger Things has always been good at using visual metaphors without being too heavy-handed about it. What happens if they succeed? If Max and Holly both escape the mindscape, does that mean Max wakes up from her coma? Is her body in Hawkins Memorial Hospital going to suddenly open its eyes while she's mentally escaping Vecna's control? And Holly, if she makes it out, does she just wake up wherever her physical body is? The mechanics of the mindscape and how it relates to the physical world have never been entirely clear, which is probably intentional. It adds to the dreamlike, nightmarish quality of these sequences. How they get out is anyone's guess, but it's definitely one of the more intriguing storylines set up. Something loads of fans have been wanting to see for ages is finally happening. Eleven and Carly, also known as 8, are working together. The trailer gives us several shots of them side by side, and there's this palpable sense that their combined powers are going to be crucial for what's coming. This reunion has been years in the making, literally, and seeing it happen in the trailer is honestly quite exciting. Carly was introduced way back in Season 2, Episode 7, which was titled The Lost Sister. That episode is probably the most divisive in the entire series. Some fans absolutely loved it because it expanded the world beyond Hawkins and showed us that 11 wasn't the only survivor of Dr. Brenner's experiments. Others felt like it was a jarring detour from the main storyline, coming right in the middle of Season 2 when the tension was building toward the Mind Flayer confrontation. The episode follows 11 to Chicago, where she finds Carly and her group of outcasts, who are hunting down the people who worked at Hawkins' lab and hurt them as children. To be honest, I quite liked that episode. It was different, sure, but it gave 11 this moment of seeing what her life could have been if she'd chosen a different path. Carly represents anger and revenge. using her powers to punish the people who wronged her. 11 ultimately rejects that approach and returns to Hawkins because she realizes her place is with her friends, protecting them rather than seeking vengeance. It was an important character moment for Elle, even if the episode itself felt disconnected from everything else happening that season. Carly's powers are fascinating and completely different from 11's abilities. While 11 has telekinesis and can move objects with her mind, search for people remotely, and tap into memories, Carly creates illusions. She can make people see things that aren't there. She can conjure entire false realities, make herself and others invisible, create phantom threats that feel completely real to anyone experiencing them. It's psychological manipulation on a massive scale. In Season 2, we saw her make a group of people believe a building was collapsing around them when nothing was actually happening. She made herself look like someone else entirely. Her powers are all about perception and deception. Now here's why the team-up matters. Vecna is incredibly powerful, and direct confrontation with him hasn't worked well so far. 11 has fought him multiple times and struggled to gain the upper hand. In their battle at the end of Season 4, she barely survived, and Vecna accomplished most of what he wanted despite her intervention. So the question becomes, how do you fight someone that powerful? And the answer might be combining different types of abilities to attack him in ways he doesn't expect. Carly's illusion powers could be absolutely crucial in a fight against Vecna. Imagine being able to make him see things that aren't there, to confuse him, to create false targets while the real attack comes from a different direction. Vecna's power is partly based on psychological torture. He uses people's fears and traumas against them, constructing mental prisons from their worst memories. Carly's abilities operate in a similar space. She manipulates perception and psychology. She might be uniquely suited to disrupting whatever Vecna does in the mindscape. The trailer shows 11 in what looks like the Hawkins radio station. She's got those sensory deprivation aids on, the blindfold and the white noise through headphones, which is how she focuses her powers to search for people across distances. She's clearly trying to locate someone, and based on the context, it's probably Vecna. She's searching through the psychic plane, trying to pin down where he is and what he's doing with those 12 vessels he took. Having Kaylee there provides backup, another powerful psychic who can potentially boost 11's abilities or protect her while she's vulnerable during these searches. Dr. K's role in bringing them together is also interesting. Linda Hamilton brings this intensity to the character that suggests Dr. K isn't just a simple villain. She's been experimenting on psychic children, yes, and she's working for the government, but the fact that she had Coley in her facility and that 11 and Hopper were able to break in and free her suggests there might be more complexity there. Is Dr. K someone who can be reasoned with? Is she trying to study psychic powers to defend against Vecna? Or is she just exploiting these kids for military purposes? The trailer doesn't give us enough to know for certain, but her presence with a gun out in several shots suggests she's going to be a factor in Volume 2's events. The potential of combining 11 and Carly's powers is something the show has been building towards since Season 2. They're sisters in the way that matters, both victims of the same program, both escaped from the same nightmare. They have this connection that goes beyond just shared trauma. They understand each other in ways that normal people can't. When 11 was with Carly in Season 2, there was this moment where their powers seemed to resonate together, like having another psychic nearby amplified what they could do. If they can work together effectively, if Carly can create illusions to confuse and distract Vecna, while 11 attacks him directly, that's a combination he hasn't faced before. He's fought 11 one-on-one. He knows her capabilities, her limits, her fighting style, but he doesn't know Carly. He doesn't know what she can do, and that element of surprise might be exactly what our heroes need to gain an advantage. What's also significant is that both of them have deeply personal reasons to want Vecna dead. 11, because he's threatened everyone she loves and has been the source of so much pain in her life. Carly, because Vecna, when he was Henry Creel, was part of the same program that tortured her. He was one, the first child with powers, and he was there in the lab before he massacred everyone and got banished to the Upside Down. Carly might not have direct memories of him, but they share a history through that lab. They're all products of the same awful experiment. The trailer footage of them together shows them looking determined, focused. There's no hesitation in their body language. They know what needs to be done, and they're ready to do it. Millie Bobby Brown and Linnea Berthelsen have this natural chemistry, even in the brief shots we see, which makes sense given they work together in Season 2. Bringing Carly back isn't just fan service, it's a strategic move that expands the tools available for the final battle. It's nice to see the show bringing Carly back in a meaningful way. While Eleven and Carly are working together on their mission, there's plenty of action happening elsewhere in Hawkins. The military occupation of the town is clearly getting worse, and our heroes aren't taking it lying down. The trailer gives us some absolutely intense sequences of conflict between our group and the armed forces. And honestly, things escalate to a level we haven't really seen before in the series. Throughout Season 5, the military has been positioned as almost a secondary antagonist. Yes, Vecna is the ultimate villain, the supernatural threat that could end the world, but the military represents a different kind of danger. They've placed Hawkins under quarantine, which means checkpoints, patrols, restricted movement, and martial law. They're hunting for Eleven because the government sees her as a weapon or a threat or both. They don't understand what's really happening with the Upside Down, or if they do understand, they're more interested in studying it and weaponizing it than in actually stopping Vecna. The official synopsis for Season 5 mentioned that the government has intensified its hunt for Eleven, forcing her back into hiding. That's been a constant throughout her life. She escaped Hawkins' lab as a child, spent years on the run, and even when she tried to have a normal life in California during Season 4, it didn't work out. The government keeps coming after her, and now, with Hawkins in crisis and Vecna actively threatening reality, the military is still focused on capturing Eleven rather than helping defeat the actual enemy, which brings us to one of the most badass moments in the entire trailer. Nancy Wheeler on top of a delivery truck with a massive bullet belt across her chest and a gun in her hands, actively shooting at military personnel. Natalia Dyer's Nancy has always been fierce when protecting the people she loves, but this is taking it to another level entirely. She's not hiding or running. She's standing on top of a moving vehicle, fully exposed, firing at armed soldiers. The truck is being driven by Murray Bauman, played by Brett Gelman. Murray has been this conspiracy theorist character who somehow keeps ending up in the middle of everything important. He helped expose the Russian operation under Starcourt Mall, he's been assisting Joyce and Hopper, and now he's apparently driving a delivery truck through a war zone while Nancy uses it as a mobile gun platform. The visual is properly cinematic, something you'd expect from an action film rather than a show about teenagers fighting monsters. Nancy with that bullet belt is such a striking image. She looks like she's ready for an actual war, which I suppose she is. The belt is draped across her torso, dozens of rounds visible, and she's not hesitating at all. The Nancy we first met in Season 1 was this popular girl worried about fitting in and dating Steve Harrington. 5 seasons later, she's become this hardened fighter who will absolutely shoot soldiers if they're standing between her and saving Hawkins. It's character development taken to its logical extreme. The question is, why is she shooting at the military? What situation has escalated to the point where our heroes are in open conflict with armed forces? Based on the context from Volume 1 and what we see in the trailer, it's likely connected to the military trying to capture Eleven or stop the group from doing whatever they need to do to fight Vecna. The government doesn't trust these kids. From their perspective, a bunch of teenagers claiming there's a supernatural threat from another dimension sounds insane, even if they've seen evidence of the Upside Down, even if they know something extraordinary is happening. They're approaching it from a place of control and containment rather than cooperation. Dr. K appears in multiple shots with her gun drawn as well. Linda Hamilton plays her with this intensity that makes you believe she's someone who's seen combat, or at least serious action. There's a shot in the trailer where she's definitely pointing her weapon at something, and it might be Murray's truck. It's hard to tell from the quick cuts, but the implication is that she's either trying to stop them or she's shooting at something else in the area. Dr. K's allegiances are still somewhat unclear. She's been experimenting on psychic children, which is obviously problematic, but she also let Eleven and Hopper access Carly. Is she someone who can be reasoned with, or is she a true antagonist? The escalation of violence is significant. In previous seasons, the military and government presence was there, but mostly in the background. Dr. Brenner and his people were villains, sure, but the focus was always on the supernatural threats. The soldiers in Season 4 were more background elements, but in Season 5, especially in Volume 2 based on this trailer, the military becomes a direct obstacle. Our heroes have to fight through them to accomplish their goals. There's something desperate about these scenes. The way Nancy is exposed on top of that truck, the way she's shooting at people who are ostensibly on the same side, it suggests that the situation has deteriorated beyond negotiation. They can't talk their way out of this. They can't convince the military to stand down or work with them. So they're forcing their way through, and that means violence. It's also worth noting how the show is visually depicting this conflict. The soldiers aren't faceless enemies. They're just people doing their jobs, following orders, trying to contain what they perceive as a threat. The show has always been good at showing different perspectives, and even in these brief trailer shots, you can see that the military personnel are scared too. They don't understand what's happening. They're in over their heads dealing with supernatural phenomena they can't explain. So they fall back on what they know, which is following protocol and trying to control the situation through force. Nancy Wheeler doesn't mess about, does she? She's protecting her friends, her family, her town, and if that means going through an army to do it, apparently that's exactly what she'll do. The danger isn't just from the military though. One of the more terrifying sequences in the trailer takes place at what looks like Hawkins Memorial Hospital. The hospital has been this recurring location throughout the series, the place where characters recover from injuries or where dramatic confrontations happen. It's where Joyce went when Will was found in Season 1. It's where Max has been in a coma since the end of Season 4. It's meant to be a safe space, a place of healing. But based on what we're seeing in the Volume 2 trailer, it's about to become anything but safe. Demodogs are attacking the hospital. For those who might need a refresher, Demodogs are basically adolescent demogorgons. They're smaller than the full-grown creatures, about the size of large dogs, but they're still absolutely lethal. They have the same petal-shaped heads that open up to reveal rows of teeth, and they hunt in packs. We first saw them properly in Season 2 when Dustin tried to keep one as a pet, which went about as well as you'd expect. By the end of that season, a whole pack of Demodogs was attacking the lab, overwhelming security and killing people left and right. They're fast, vicious, and coordinated in ways that make them even more dangerous than a single Demogorgon might be. Now they're loose in Hawkins Memorial Hospital, and the implications of that are properly horrifying. Hospitals are full of vulnerable people, patients who can't move, who are sedated, who are connected to machines keeping them alive. Medical staff who have no training or equipment to deal with interdimensional predators. It's a massacre waiting to happen, and the trailer gives us glimpses of exactly that kind of horror unfolding. Vicky, played by Amy Beth McNulty, appears to be right in the middle of this chaos. Vicky was introduced in Season 4 as Robin's crush, this band geek who shares Robin's rambling energy and awkwardness. She's not someone with combat experience or supernatural knowledge. She's just a normal teenager who's found herself in the worst possible situation. The trailer shows her looking absolutely terrified, and there are definitely Demodogs visible in the shots around her. Whether she's trapped in a hallway or a room, whether she's alone or with others, it's unclear, but she's in serious danger. Protect her. Seriously. Vicky has done nothing to deserve being hunted by nightmare creatures in a hospital. She's one of the few genuinely innocent characters left, someone who wasn't even involved in any of this upside-down business until very recently. The show has a history of killing off characters who seem safe, and the fact that Vicky is in peril like this is genuinely worrying for her survival chances. Max and Lucas are also at the hospital, which makes sense given that Max's body has been there in a coma for months. Caleb McLaughlin's Lucas has been one of the most loyal characters throughout the entire series, and his devotion to Max has been this emotional anchor across multiple seasons. In Season 4, when Max was targeted by Vecna, Lucas was the one coordinating her rescue. He was the one holding her hand when Vecna broke her bones and nearly killed her. And since she fell into that coma, Lucas has presumably been visiting her regularly, sitting by her bedside, talking to her, even though she can't respond. The trailer shows Lucas and what appears to be Max in a precarious spot within the hospital. The lighting is that emergency red lighting you get when power is failing or alarms are going off. There's debris and chaos visible in the background. Lucas looks like he's trying to protect someone or get someone to safety, and given the context, it's almost certainly connected to Max. Whether her physical body is in danger from the demodogs or whether Lucas is trying to move her to somewhere safer, the situation looks desperate. What makes this particularly heartbreaking is the parallel between Max's two states of existence. While her body is lying in a hospital bed, vulnerable and unconscious, her mind is trapped in Vecna's mindscape with Holly Wheeler. She's fighting for her life on two different fronts simultaneously. In the mindscape, she's trying to escape through those doorways we talked about earlier. In the physical world, her body is under threat from creatures invading the hospital. She can't protect herself in either location. She's completely dependent on others to keep her alive. Lucas staying by Max's side through all of this shows the kind of person he is. He could be out fighting Vecna directly. He could be with the group in the Upside Down doing reconnaissance, but instead, he's at the hospital, making sure Max's body stays safe, while her mind fights its own battle. That's love, honestly. That's the kind of devotion that makes you root for these characters to survive and get their happy ending, even though, Stranger Things isn't necessarily kind to people wanting happy endings. The question of why demodogs would specifically attack the hospital is interesting. Are they being controlled by Vecna to target Max's body? Does he know that she's escaping the mindscape and he's trying to kill her physical form before she can wake up? Or is this just part of a larger assault on Hawkins, with creatures from the Upside Down spreading throughout the town, attacking anyone they find? The trailer doesn't give us enough context to know for certain, but the targeting of the hospital feels deliberate rather than random. Hospitals in horror have always been particularly effective because they subvert our expectations of safety. These are places we associate with healing and care, staffed by people whose job is to help others. Turning that into a hunting ground for monsters creates this cognitive dissonance that makes the horror feel more intense. And for the patients and staff who have no idea what's really happening in Hawkins, who don't know about the Upside Down or Vecna or any of it, suddenly being attacked by creatures that shouldn't exist must be absolutely traumatic. It's honestly heartbreaking to see Max in both states at once. If you've been on social media at all since the trailer dropped, you've probably seen people losing their minds over one particular moment. It involves Steve Harrington and Dustin Henderson, and it's the kind of scene that hits you right in the feelings, even though it's only a few seconds long. This moment has generated more discussion, more fan art, more panic, and more emotional breakdowns than probably any other single beat in the entire trailer. And for good reason. The scene shows Steve and Dustin together, and Steve looks at Dustin and says, "If you die, I die." And then Dustin, without missing a beat, repeats it right back to him. "If you die, I die." It's simple, it's direct, and it's absolutely devastating when you understand the context and history behind it. This line is a direct callback to Season 3. Specifically, it's from Episode 5 of that season, when Steve and Dustin were trapped in the Russian facility under Starcourt Mall. They were stuck in this elevator that had descended deep underground into the secret base, and they needed to open this container that might help them escape, or at least understand what the Russians were doing. The problem was that opening the container was potentially dangerous. It could explode, release toxic gas, or trigger some kind of alarm that would get them captured or killed. Dustin was the one about to open it, and Steve tried to stop him because of the risk. And Dustin looked at Steve and said, "If you die, I die." It was this moment of absolute loyalty and friendship. Dustin was saying that their fates were linked, that they were in this together, and that he wasn't going to let Steve face danger alone while he stayed safe. It was sweet and terrifying at the same time because these were two characters we'd grown to love, and they were both acknowledging that they might die in the next few minutes. They survived season 3, obviously, but that line became this defining moment for their relationship. It encapsulated everything about their bond. Steve, the former popular jock who started the series as kind of a jerk but evolved into this protective, big brother figure. And Dustin, the nerdy kid with the distinctive lisp and the hat collection, who looks up to Steve as this role model and friend. Their friendship is one of the purest relationships in the entire show because it developed so organically and unexpectedly. In season 1, Steve and Dustin never interacted. They existed in completely different worlds. Steve was a teenager worried about his relationship with Nancy and maintaining his social status. Dustin was a middle schooler dealing with the disappearance of his best friend and the discovery of a girl with psychic powers. They had no reason to even meet, let alone become friends. Season 2 changed that. Steve ended up babysitting Dustin and the other kids, initially reluctantly, and something just clicked between them. Steve saw this kid who was smart and funny and loyal, but maybe didn't have the confidence he needed, and Dustin saw this older guy who seemed cool, but was actually kind of dorky underneath, who had his own insecurities and struggles. They understood each other in this unexpected way. By season 3, they developed this dynamic where they'd actively choose to team up. When the Russian code needed decoding, Dustin went to Steve for help. When they got trapped in the facility, they worked together to survive. Their friendship had become this anchor point in the show, something reliably wholesome and genuine in the midst of all the horror and darkness. Joe Keery and Gaten Matarazzo have incredible chemistry together, and the Duffer Brothers wisely gave them loads of scenes across multiple seasons because it just works. Steve's character development is genuinely one of the best arcs in the entire series. He went from being the stereotypical popular jerk boyfriend to being this beloved character who audiences root for constantly. He's been beaten up more times than probably any other character. He's faced demogorgons with a nail bat, fought Russian soldiers, protected the kids over and over again, and through it all, he's remained fundamentally decent. He doesn't have powers like Eleven. He's not the smartest like Dustin or the most strategic like Nancy. He's just brave and loyal and willing to put himself between danger and the people he cares about. His relationship with Dustin represents the best version of Steve. When he's with Dustin, there's no posturing, no trying to be cool. He can be goofy and sincere and vulnerable. They have this easy rapport where they can joke around but also have real conversations. In season 3, there was that whole subplot about Steve's romantic struggles and his job at Scoops Ahoy, and Dustin was there giving him advice and support. They're genuinely friends despite the age difference, despite coming from different backgrounds. It's friendship based on mutual respect and shared trauma and just genuinely enjoying each other's company. So when Volume 2's trailer shows Steve now being the one to say, "If you die, I die," to Dustin, it's this beautiful reversal. In season 3, Dustin said it to Steve. Now Steve is saying it back. It's an acknowledgement that their bond goes both ways, that Steve values Dustin just as much as Dustin values Steve, that they're equals in this friendship despite the age gap. And it's also, let's be honest, a pretty ominous death flag. The internet has been in absolute panic mode about this scene. Twitter, Reddit, TikTok, everywhere you look, people are convinced that either Steve or Dustin or both are going to die in Volume 2 or the finale. The Duffer Brothers have a history of killing beloved characters. Bob Newby in Season 2, Billy Hargrove in Season 3, Eddie Munson in Season 4. Each season seems to take someone important, and fans are terrified that Steve is next on the chopping block. Steve has become so beloved that his death would be genuinely devastating to the fan base. There are entire corners of the internet dedicated to the motto, "If Steve dies, we riot." It's partially joking, but also partially serious. People are deeply invested in this character, surviving and getting a happy ending. He's been through so much, protected so many people, and he deserves to make it out alive. The idea that he might die saving Dustin, or that Dustin might die and Steve has to live with that, either scenario is heartbreaking. The hug between Steve and Dustin that's also shown in the trailer adds another layer to this. They're embracing, and you can see the emotion in it. This isn't a casual, friendly hug. This is two people who know they might not survive what's coming and are taking a moment to acknowledge what they mean to each other. It's the kind of goodbye hug you give when you're not sure you'll see someone again. What this scene might mean for Volume 2 is hard to say without seeing the actual episodes. It could be that they're preparing for a mission that's particularly dangerous, and they're making this pact before they go into it. It could be that they're about to separate and want to make sure the other knows how much they're valued. It could be foreshadowing that one or both of them won't make it to the finale. The ambiguity is part of what makes it so emotionally effective and so terrifying for fans who've grown attached to these characters. The fact that they chose to include this moment in the trailer tells us it's significant. Trailers are carefully constructed to show us the most impactful moments without spoiling major plot points. The Duffer Brothers wanted people to see this exchange, to understand that the stakes are incredibly high and that no one is safe. They're preparing us emotionally for the possibility of loss. This honestly got me when I first watched the trailer. The simplicity of the line, the weight of the history behind it, the way both actors deliver it with complete sincerity. It's a perfect encapsulation of what makes Stranger Things work beyond just the supernatural horror elements. At its core, it's a show about friendship and loyalty, and people choosing to face impossible odds together because they refuse to let each other down. No notes. Mike Wheeler takes on a bit of a leadership role in the trailer, which makes sense given everything. He's always been the heart of the original party, the one who kept everyone together, even when things got difficult. When Will went missing in Season 1, Mike was the one who refused to give up looking for him. When Eleven showed up scared and alone, Mike was the one who took her in and protected her. Throughout 5 seasons, Mike has been this anchor point for the group, and Volume 2's trailer shows him stepping into that role once again. There's this voiceover from Mike that plays over several different scenes in the trailer. He says, "I don't know what's on the other side of any of this, but if we want to stand a chance of surviving, we need to be a team." It's delivered with this quiet intensity that Finn Wolfhard does really well. Mike isn't shouting or being dramatic about it. He's just stating the truth as he sees it. They're facing something none of them fully understand, something more powerful and dangerous than anything they've fought before, and the only way they survive is if they work together. The sentiment is classic Mike Wheeler, honestly. He's always been the one advocating for unity and trust within the group. In Season 1, when Lucas and Dustin were fighting, Mike was trying to get them to focus on finding Will. In Season 2, when Max joined the party and there was tension about whether to trust her, Mike was cautious, but ultimately inclusive. In Season 3, when the group split up to investigate different threads of the Russian conspiracy, Mike was the one coordinating everyone. He's not always right, and he's definitely made mistakes across the series, but his instinct has always been to keep the party together. What's interesting about this particular speech is the acknowledgement of uncertainty. "I don't know what's on the other side of any of this" is a pretty vulnerable thing to admit when you're trying to rally people. Mike isn't pretending to have all the answers. He's not saying they're definitely going to win or that he has a brilliant plan. He's just saying that their only chance is to stick together and function as a team. It's leadership through honesty rather than false confidence, and that feels appropriate for where these characters are at this point in the story. The trailer cuts between Mike's voiceover and various shots of the group members. We see Eleven and Mike together in one shot, and there's this look between them that carries the weight of everything they've been through. Their relationship has been complicated across multiple seasons. Season 3 had them breaking up and making up. Season 4 had them dealing with distance and communication issues, while Eleven was in California. But through all of it, there's been this fundamental connection between them. Mike was the first person to show Eleven kindness and acceptance when she escaped the lab. She was the person who made him feel like he could be brave and important. We also see Will using his powers in some of the footage. That plays during Mike's speech. His eyes go white, that blank stare that indicates he's tapping into the Upside Down's hive mind, and Mike is visible, watching him do it. There's concern on Mike's face, but also this acceptance. Will is his best friend, has been since they were little kids, and now Will has become something connected to their enemy. That's got to be difficult for Mike to process, watching his best friend transform into someone with these dark abilities. But he's not turning away from Will. He's still there, still supporting him, still treating him as part of the team. Lucas and Max appear in some of the shots as well, both at the hospital based on the lighting and environment. Their story this season has been about Lucas refusing to give up on Max, even when she's been in a coma for months. That kind of loyalty and dedication is exactly what Mike's talking about when he emphasizes the importance of being a team. It's not just about fighting together in battle. It's about showing up for each other in the quiet moments, the difficult moments, the times when there's no immediate danger, but someone still needs support. The emphasis on the whole party working together has been building throughout the entire series. Season 1 was about the original 4 boys plus 11. Season 2 expanded to include Max and brought back 11 after her temporary separation. Season 3 had the group splitting into different teams, but ultimately coming together for the final confrontation. Season 4 scattered everyone across different locations, but still maintained that sense of connection. Now, in Season 5, it's all coming together for one final stand. The One Last Time theme runs through everything in Volume 2's trailer and promotional materials. This is the last season, the last battle, the last time we'll see these characters facing impossible odds together. There's a weight to that finality, and Mike's speech acknowledges it without explicitly stating it. They need to be a team one last time, and this time, the stakes are higher than they've ever been. Finn Wolfhard's performance across the series has tracked Mike's growth from this nerdy kid playing Dungeons and Dragons in his basement to this young man trying to lead his friends through an actual apocalypse. Mike's always been a bit intense, sometimes to his detriment, but that intensity comes from how much he cares about the people in his life. He's not always great at expressing his feelings, he struggles with vulnerability, but when it comes to protecting and supporting his friends, he shows up every single time. The importance of the original group, what fans called the party, cannot be overstated in terms of what makes Stranger Things work. Mike, Dustin, Lucas and Will started this whole thing. They were the kids looking for their missing friend, the ones who found 11, the ones who discovered the Upside Down existed. Everything that's happened since then has involved more people joining the fight, the circle expanding to include Max, Steve, Robin, Nancy, Jonathan, Joyce, Hopper, and everyone else. But at the center of it all has always been those 4 boys and their friendship. Watching them prepare for this final battle, hearing Mike rally everyone with that speech about teamwork and survival, it really does feel like everything is building to this final stand. They've been training for this, in a sense, since Season 1. Every battle they've survived, every loss they've endured, every lesson they've learned, it's all been preparation for facing Vecna and ending the threat of the Upside Down permanently. It really does feel like everything is building to this final stand. And speaking of final stands, let's talk about the big bad himself. Vecna gets some properly chilling moments in this trailer, and one in particular stands out as absolutely nightmare-inducing. We see Henry Creel, the human form of Vecna before his transformation, walking down a flight of stairs. He's got this unsettling calm about him, moving deliberately, and then something happens that's genuinely disturbing to watch. He transforms in real time. Right there on the stairs, we see Henry Creel's body shift and change into Vecna's monstrous form. The skin becomes that grotesque, burned texture. The vines and organic matter spread across his body. His face warps into that skull-like appearance with the stretched skin and exposed areas. Jamie Campbell Bower's performance across both forms is properly unnerving. There's this intelligence behind the eyes that remains constant, whether he's in human form or full monster mode, and that makes him more terrifying than if he were just a mindless creature. As the transformation completes, Vecna delivers what might be the most ominous line in the entire trailer. He says, "It is time for a new world." The way he pauses between those phrases, the absolute certainty in his voice, it's the statement of someone who genuinely believes he's about to reshape reality according to his vision. And based on everything we've seen in Volume 1, based on the fact that he successfully obtained all 12 vessels he needed, he's not just talking, he's actually got the means to do whatever horrific thing he's planning. What does a new world mean in Vecna's context? Throughout Season 4, we learned about his philosophy, his hatred for humanity, and what he sees as the lies and cruelty of human society. He wants to tear it all down and build something else, something he controls. The vessels he's collected, those 12 children, they're somehow key to this transformation. Whether he's planning to use them as batteries for some massive ritual, or as anchors to spread the upside down across the entire world, or something else entirely, the specifics aren't clear, but the intent is obvious. He's done with just threatening Hawkins. He's coming for everything. The trailer also hints at the Mind Flayer making an appearance, which makes sense. The Mind Flayer has always been this looming presence, this massive entity in the Upside Down that seemed to be the ultimate intelligence behind everything. But Season 4 revealed that Vecna might actually be the one shaping and controlling the Mind Flayer, not the other way around. If that's true, if Vecna is about to unleash the full power of the Mind Flayer alongside his own abilities, then our heroes are facing something truly apocalyptic. The official synopsis mentioned a darkness more powerful and more deadly than anything they've faced before. And seeing Vecna's transformation, hearing his declaration about a new world, it's clear that Volume 2 is building towards something massive. This isn't just another battle where they close a gate and push back the Upside Down's influence. This is the end of everything if they fail. Vecna isn't hiding anymore. He's not scheming from the shadows. He's ready to make his move, and he's confident enough to announce it. It's basically the end of the world as they know it, and Volume 2 is going to show us how our heroes respond to that threat with everything they have left. And that, my dear friends, is where we'll end tonight's video. I've covered the major moments from the Volume 2 trailer, from Will's devastating realization and new powers to the shocking revelations about the Upside Down, from Steve and Dustin's emotional pact to Vecna's chilling transformation and declaration. There's so much packed into these 3 episodes, coming on Christmas Day, and honestly, the wait is going to be brutal. In a future video, I'm definitely going to cover Volume 2 after it releases, breaking down what actually happens and how it sets up the finale. I'll also do a full analysis of the finale episode when it drops on New Year's Eve. There's just so much still to explore about this final season, the character arcs, the mythology, all of it. But until Christmas Day arrives and we can watch Volume 2, we'll just have to sit with this trailer and speculate about what's coming. But until next time, stay safe and sweet dreams.